Pull closer, draw closer. If you're part of the youth, this concerns you. If you're a parent, this concerns you. If you are thinking, Sheila, I have passed that time, my children are grown, they can take care of themselves, or you're supposed to pass on wisdom, this concerns you too. Let's draw in. Now, by 2035, almost half of the world's young people will live in Africa, and South Africa sits at the heart of this transformation. The South African Youth Business Chamber has merged as a national force, backing young entrepreneurs with capital, with networks, and with policy influence. The country seeks to turn its youth boom into a business boom. And we are joined by the president of the South African Youth Business Chamber, that is Siphila Dlamini, to unpack how the chamber is positioning the youth businesses for the future. And so joining us on the line this evening, Mr. Dlamini, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Thank you for having us. And it's always a pleasure to contribute to conversations that have to do with how we can improve this country and improve this continent for our young people.
Let's start with that very fact, right? Currently, the continent has a 60% ratio of youth. How does that factor into South Africa?
Well, South Africa has positioned itself as a leader of the continent. Of course, some players in the continent itself would beg to differ, but with us being on the cutting edge in terms of leading diplomacy, in terms of leading youth development, in terms of leading on various fronts, young people in South Africa must position themselves, to be able to take up the opportunities that come with us being, the youngest population group in the world. I mean, by the way the stats are going, young people in Africa are going to be the drivers of the tomorrow. And essentially what that comes with and what the responsibility that it gives us now is that we must properly prepare ourselves for that. And that is by upskilling, by ensuring that we are ready when that time comes.
Mr. Dlamini, I just want to find out how the South African Youth Business Chamber is using this particular demographic, the 60% ratio, of course, when we're looking at the youth, but also just putting its claws into the South African context and using those insights to shape its programs and the vision for 2026 as well.
So at this point in time, one of our biggest contributions has been, I think, perhaps to give a bit of context, South Africa is facing a serious crisis of youth unemployment, with stats being above 40%, and with more than 35% of those people being young women, and young women of color in particular. So the South African Youth Business Chamber then has a mandate to ensure that young people contribute to the change that we require in terms of the job market. Now, what that comes with is that we simply cannot hire everyone, and there's not enough jobs to go around. So our role as the business chamber is then to ensure that we empower young people throughout the country as they open their businesses, as they maintain, and to ensure that they themselves become the tools to creating employment and in turn fighting unemployment in our communities. And that's a very important aspect and a very important mandate that we've been given, because that cascades into other avenues of society, crime prevention. When there's one young person that is leading a business in the family, all of a sudden they're able to provide, for basic needs. They're able to, that young person is able to hire one more young person from that community, and that changes, two families. So the more young people that we have that are contributing to the creation of employment and through their small and medium enterprises, then the more that we can fight the social ills such as gender-based violence. If you are at work, you don't have time to abuse your partner, you're being productive. There's no time for you ubambe inkunzi in the corner because you have the money that for the needs that you'd need to cover. So yeah.
The voice there of the president of the South African Youth Business Chamber, Siphila Dlamini, joining us this evening. If you want to send through your questions, find us on WhatsApp +27 6340 9126. Mr. Dlamini, I want to talk about leveraging on the youth's strength. So one thing that has been highlighted consistently is their ability to integrate technology into their space, right? This might not be true for every single person that is part of the youth. However, a greater majority of them do find themselves with access, some kind of access to technology, being able to pick up the nuances that currently are and use them. But the reality is that I don't think they're using them to the benefit of business. How is the South African Youth Business Chamber maximizing on that reality, the inclusivity of technology at least?
Technology is an integral part of society today. And it's unfortunate that most of our young people, in as much as they use technology, they do not use it to, for business purposes. And that is not necessarily because they do not want to, but they aren't aware that, you could actually, how to best leverage their skills, their youth businesses with the technology we have available today. I mean, just to give an example, we have young people who are authors, who we've started working with through our accelerator business development program, to have as we speak, some of them are publishing their books as ebooks instead, allowing, a wider audience. You don't need to go to a bookstore. You just go on their online store, you purchase the book, and, you're reading. We have a brilliant young person called Butelo. She's developing an AI that speaks all the 11 South African languages, the spoken ones. And it's essentially going to help government departments perform their functions better, as well as private sector. So in as much as our young people now aren't using technology as they should be, we have steps in the right direction, and it shows that there's massive potential. Another industry that we had previously overlooked, influencing. I mean, young people are making a lot of money online through influencing. Of course, it is important that we ensure that they're influencing our society in the right direction, but that on its own, the fact that it has stopped being an avenue of just entertainment, but now it's business as well, is an indicator that young people are leveraging technology, they are leveraging the opportunities that are becoming available to them.
Let's talk about access to market. I love the example you made there of this ebook of kinds that would then create an even more diverse platform for the offering. You've emphasized reducing dependence on the state and leveraging of trade. Now, how are you concretely connecting the youth businesses to opportunities through the African Continental Free Trade Area?
So at the South African Youth Business Chamber, we actually have an AFCA youth trade mission, essentially a team of envoys that have the responsibility of leading discussions with our peer organizations and fellow governments and entities throughout the African continent, but also outside of Africa in itself. BRICS is an integral part of that, as well as the main trade partners of the African Union. For young people, it is not necessarily a matter of the market not being there. It is a matter of, do our young people have access to it? There are a lot of red tapes and a lot of processes that make it difficult for them to access markets properly. So the trade mission that we have within the chamber deals with those logistics of ensuring that discussions that must be had on behalf of young people are accelerated, and that they are effective. If a young person that is producing corn in Limpopo, they should be able to sell their corn in Togo, in Sudan, in Kenya, and so on, without all of these red tapes in place, as well as these ridiculous tariffs. So while AFCA itself is a brilliant model, and we've started to see the results of that, we have a lot more work that still needs to be done to ensure that young people are at the forefront, and that starts by reducing the trade barriers. So the partnerships that we have with peer organizations throughout the continent, with that we're pursuing as we speak, with other governments and other private sector entities, is what is going to allow us to leverage the free trade area and ensure that as many people as possible have access to it.
And I understand that the Youth Business Chamber takes a strong stance at policy reform, this including the Black Economic Empowerment and Free Market Principles. What would you suggest are changes that would most accelerate youth entrepreneurship right now, this very instance, sir?
In this very instance, we need... South Africa is very good in terms of writing policy. We have a different record when it comes to us actually implementing that. And the other problem is the massive and the rampant corruption in the country, which has made BEE somewhat ineffective. So while BEE in itself is a beautiful policy document, it has not translated to the change at grassroots level that it was supposed to translate to. So some of the policy reforms that we're calling for is an overhaul in the implementation and how it's been implemented over the past 30 years. Because what has happened is it has enriched a few politically connected elites, while the ordinary people on the ground do not even know or understand what it is. So young people must be the biggest beneficiaries of this change, and the reforms that must happen must ensure that in all of the opportunities that BE avails, young people have more than 50% of those opportunities. Because in investing in young people, we're essentially investing in a country that is capacitated and a country that has young people as active participants in its economy.
Well put there, Mr. Dlamini. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Then thank you for having us. Have a great evening, Feda.